Salutations! I am Marduk, and welcome back. Today our objective is to figure out what is the Enuma Ellish, Part 2. We've already established background in the first episode, so I'm just going to do a quick recap of what we've learned in Part 1. Very briefly, we learned that heaven and earth exist at the start of the story, but have no name. Only Apsu and Tiamat, which represent salt and fresh water, are the only beings in existence. They mingle, and gods emerge. Time begins to take shape and form. Their children, the gods, grow strong, chaotic, uncontrollable, and rebellious. This bothers Apsu and Tiamat. Apsu, the primal father, schemes to kill them in order to have a return to order and peace. Ea, however, thwarts Apsu's evil scheme. He incapacitates and kills Apsu, and he takes all of Apsu's stuff. He then makes a sweet home, a beautiful palace, and within he engenders a brand new god with his consort, his wife, Damkina. And here we begin, where we left off. Lord Anshar, father of the gods, rose up in grandeur. Having pondered in his heart, he said to the Anunnaki, "Whose strength is potent shall be our avenger, he who is sharp in battle." Marduk, the hero. Ea called Marduk into his secluded presence. Giving counsel, he told him what was in his heart. Marduk came forth, the wisest of the gods, your son. His heart prompted him to face Tiamat. He opened his mouth, saying to me, "If indeed as your avenger I am to vanquish Tiamat and save your lives, convene the assembly and proclaim supreme my destiny, when jointly in Ubshakina you sat down rejoicing. Let my word instead of yours determine the fates. What I may bring into being shall be unchangeable, neither dismissed nor replaced shall be the command of my lips. Now hasten hither, and promptly fix him for your decrees, that he may go forth to face your mighty foe." They erected for him an ample throne. Facing his fathers, he sat down, presiding. "You are the most honored of the great gods. Your decree is unrivaled. Your command is Anu. You, Marduk, are the most honored of the great gods. Your decree is unrivaled. Your word is Anu. From this day unchangeable shall be your pronouncement. To raise or bring low, these shall be in your hand. Your utterance shall be true. Your command shall be unimpeachable. No one among the gods shall transgress your bounds." Adornment being wanted for the seats of the gods, let the place of their shrines ever be in your place. O Marduk, you are indeed our avenger. We have granted you kingship over the entire universe. Your word shall be supreme when you sit in assembly. Your weapons shall not fail. They shall smash your foes. O Lord, spare the life of him who trusts you, but pour out the life of the god who seized evil. Having placed in their midst a piece of cloth, they addressed themselves to Marduk, their firstborn. "Lord, truly your decree is first among gods. Say but to wreck or create it shall be. Open your mouth, the cloth will vanish. Speak again, the cloth will be whole." At the word emerged from his mouth, the cloth vanished. He spoke again. His fathers saw the outcome of his word. When the gods, his fathers, saw the outcome of his word, joyfully they paid homage. "Marduk is king!" They conferred on him scepter, throne, and vestment. They gave him unequaled weapons that ward off the foes. "Go and terminate the life of Tiamat. May the winds bear her blood to places undisclosed. Marduk's destiny thus fixed, the gods, his fathers, caused him to go the way of success and achievement. He constructed a bow, marked it as his weapon, attached thereto the arrow, grasped it in his right hand. He raised the mace, grasped it in his right hand. He hung bow and quiver at his side. In front of him he sat the lightning. He filled his body with blazing flame. He then made a net to enfold Tiamat. He stationed the four winds that nothing of her might escape: the north wind, the south wind, the east wind, and the west wind. Close to his side he held the net, the gift of his father, Anu. He brought forth Imhulu, the evil wind, the whirlwind, the hurricane, the fourfold wind, the sevenfold wind, the cyclone, the matchless wind. He then sent forth the seven winds he had brought forth. To stir up inside of Tiamat, they rose up behind him. Then the Lord raised up the flood storm, his mighty weapon. He mounted the storm chariot, irresistible and terrifying. He harnessed and yoked it to a team of four: the killer, the relentless, the trampler, the swift. Sharp were their poison-bearing teeth, well versed in ravage, skilled in destruction. On his right he posted the smiter, fearsome in battle. On the left the combat, which repels all the zealous. His cloak was an armor of terror. His head was turbaned with his fearsome halo. The Lord went forth and followed his course. He set his face towards the raging Tiamat. He held a spell between his lips. A plant to put out poison was grasped in his hand. Then they milled about him. The gods milled about him. The gods, his fathers, milled about him. The gods milled about him. The Lord approached to scan the inside of Tiamat, and of Kingu, her consort, the scheme to perceive. As Marduk looks on, Kingu's course becomes upset. His will is distracted, and his maneuvers are confused. And when the gods, his helpers who marched at his side, saw the valiant hero, blurred became their vision. Without turning her neck, Tiamat emitted a cry, molding savage defiance in her lips. Too important are you for the Lord of the gods to rise up against you. Is it there in their place that they have gathered, or in your place? Thereupon the Lord raised his mighty weapon, the flood storm, and to enrage Tiamat he spoke the following words: Why have you risen? Why have you arrogantly exalted? You have charged your own heart to stir up conflict. Sons reject their own fathers, while you, who have borne them, have forsworn love. You have appointed Kingu as your consort, conferring upon him the rank of Anu, not rightfully his. Against Anshar, king of the gods, you seek evil. Against the gods, my fathers, you have confirmed your wickedness. Though you have drawn up your forces, readied your weapons, stand alone, that I and you may meet in single combat. When Tiamat heard this, she was like one possessed. She took leave of her senses. In a fury, Tiamat cried aloud to the roots of her legs, shook both together. She recites a charm, keeps casting her spell, while the gods of battle sharpen their weapons. Tiamat and Marduk, wisest of the gods, then joined battle. They strove in single combat, locked in combat. The Lord spread out his net to enfold her. He let loose in her face the evil wind, which followed behind. When Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, he drove in the evil wind, and she could not close her lips, as the fierce winds encumbered her belly. Her body was distended, her mouth was open. He released an arrow, it tore her belly, it cut through her insides, splitting her heart. Having subdued her, he blotted out her life. He threw down her carcass, and stood upon it. After he had slain Tiamat the leader, her band was shattered, her troop broken up. And her helpers? the gods, who marched at her side, in order to save and preserve their lives encircled tightly, they could not escape. He made them captives. He smashed their weapons. They found themselves ensnared in the net. Thrown into cells, they were filled with wailing. Bearing his wrath, they were imprisoned, and the 11 creatures which she had charged with awe, the band of demons that marched before her, he cast into fetters their hands. For all their resistance, he trampled them underfoot. And Kingu, who had been made chief among them, he bound and accounted him to Ugai. He took from him the tables of fate, not rightfully his. Sealed them with the seal and fastened them on his own breast. When he had vanquished and subdued his adversaries, had smashed the vainglorious foe, had wholly established Anshar's triumph over the foe, Nudimmud's desire had been achieved. Valiant Marduk strengthened his hold on the vanquished gods and turned back to Tiamat, whom he had bound. The Lord trampled on the legs of Tiamat. With his unsparing mace, he crushed her skull. When the arteries of her blood he had severed, the north wind bore it to places undisclosed. On seeing this, his fathers were joyful and jubilant. They brought gifts of homage to him. Then the Lord paused to view her dead body, that he might divide the monster and do artful works. He split her like a shellfish into 2 parts. Half of her he sat up as the ceiling of the sky. He pulled down the bar and posted guards. He ordered them not to allow her waters to escape. He crossed the heavens and surveyed the regions. He squared Apsu's quarter, the abode of Nudimmud. As the Lord measured the dimensions of Apsu, the great abode, its likeness, he fixed as Eshara, the great abode, Eshara, which he made the firmament, Anu, Enlil, and Ea, he made occupy their places. He constructed stations for the gods, aligning their astral likenesses as constellations. He determined the year by assigning the zones. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months, after defining the days of the year by means of astrological figures. He founded the station of Nibiru to determine their divine bands, that none might transgress or fall short. Alongside it, he set up the stations of Enlil and Ea. Having opened up the gates on both sides, he strengthened the locks to the left and the right. In her belly he established the zenith. The moon he caused to shine, the night to him entrusting. He appointed him a creature of the night, to signify the days, months without cease, from divines with a crown. At the month's very start, rising over the land, you shall have luminous horns to signify 6 days. On the 7th day, reaching a half crown, at full moon stand in opposition in mid-month. When the sun overtakes you at the base of heaven, diminish your crown and retrogress in light. At the time of the disappearance approach you the course of the sun. And on the 29th you again stand in opposition to the sun. It was Kingu who contrived the uprising and caused Tiamat to rebel and join battle. They imposed on him his guilt and severed his blood vessels. Out of his blood they fashioned humankind. He imposed upon it the service and let free the gods. After Ea the wise had created humankind, their toil was beyond human comprehension, as he had imposed upon humans the service of the gods. As artfully planned by Marduk did Nudimmud create it. Marduk, the king of the gods, divided all the Anunnaki above and below. He assigned to them Anu to guard his instructions. 300 in the heavens he stationed as a guard. And this ends part 2 of my reading of the Enuma Ellish. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for some commentary and analysis. So imagine that you're a god amongst a group of powerful gods, yet despite your power, there is a power greater than you out to destroy you. The tyrannical Allfather had already made an attempt and was foiled due to the actions of one wise and strong god, yet out there in the darkness, the primal All-Mother, the dragon, is plotting the destruction of your group. She's breeding an army of monsters and demons and collecting wayward gods to basically bear down and destroy your little group. What would you do? Well, if you were a Mesopotamian deity, the Anunnaki, you would create a new and powerful god that could handle this threat. The god they create is Marduk. He has the strength, the wisdom, and the judgment to set things right. The price of this deal, though, is his undisputed authority. The gods agree they will follow their own son if he protects them and destroys the evil, which is a break in the pattern. The first thing we can note, it's a break in the pattern. See, Apsu tried to hold on to his power by killing his children. These gods that bestow the power to Marduk because he is worthy are technically his elders, but they are willing to transfer the authority to Marduk because he's stronger and he's the best one for the job of defeating Tiamat. Marduk proves himself a powerful magician. He can create things and destroy them with nothing but his words. He can cast spells, if you will. Maybe he says abracadabra. We just don't know. But we do know, they say, he is a magician. He has some conventional weapons, a bow and arrow, a mace, and then his stuff becomes magical, divine armament. He's got armor of terror. He's got a fearsome halo. He rides an insane war storm chariot pulled by demon horses with poisonous, venomous fangs named Killer, Trampler, Swift, and Relentless. He commands lightning in front of him. He blazes fire from within. He commands the winds, regular winds and insane winds. He can raise the tide, and he has this net that can ensnare reality itself. He's basically a Category 11 hurricane, and it is about to make pain fall on Tiamat. So he geared up, he gets the boys together, warrior gods, and they head out to get some. Now, last we saw Tiamat, she was saying to Apsu, the Allfather, like, yeah, the new gods are annoying, but let's not kill them. But off camera, something has changed. And now she's pumping out demon monster armies. She's hooked up with this dude named Kingu, who is the general of her armies. And they're about to mix it up with Marduk and his boys. Unfortunately, Kingu, he either really sucks, or compared to Marduk, anyone would really suck. So, but in any event, he's no match for Marduk. He gets casually brushed aside, and Marduk charges Tiamat. They exchange pleasantries, and they get after it. Marduk uses his magic powers, raises the flood, Tiamat opens her giant mouth to consume him, and Marduk blows his evil horror death wind into her mouth, forcing it open and filling up her body like a bagpipe, just inflating it so it's wide open. He pulls out his bow and arrow and shoots an arrow right into her heart, and she's dead. But she's out of the fight. Now he deals with Tiamat's army, which is basically routed instantly. The gods, the wayward gods, are imprisoned. The demons are handcuffed. They're all trampled and smashed and wailing, and it's just utter devastation on their side. It's not even close. Justice is served. Balance is restored. Marduk's net was just like that was some heavy that was some heavy magic he was using there. And he just caught the whole monster up and shot her in the heart and slew her. All that's really left is for him to create the rest of reality because it hasn't been made just quite yet. So he smashes Tiamat's skull and does stuff with her body, and out of her he makes stars, constellations, moons, the lunar cycle. He explains to people how they can tell how long a month has been by looking at the moon and the different shapes it would make at different cycles of the lunar phase, which is sort of actual practical technical knowledge embedded into the story, which, you could imagine, like, before people had libraries and internets and stuff, how are you really going to tell all this super useful stuff? Even if you're, especially if you're planting crops, you really need to know this stuff. Like when do I plant my crops? When do I sow them? Blah, blah, blah. And that sort of lunar information, how to tell how long a month has been, is embedded right there. He also makes homes for his loyal gods and just sort of tidies up reality. All that's left is there aren't any humans left, or there never were any humans as yet in this reality, in this mythology. So they pull out Kingu, Kingu the unlucky, or the unfortunate, or the incompetent. And he's executed, and they make humanity out of his blood. So now the new humans can serve the gods, so the gods have more free time. And I'm sure there are many levels and depths to it beyond that, but that's kind of how it reads to me. I definitely encourage you to do your own. If this is interesting, do some readings, do your own research. I'm going to have some links in the description. Check things out. Google's your friend. This is very interesting. I should say I've been using the name Marduk myself for many, many years. It was originally I needed a handle to play StarCraft 2, and I just wanted a cool name, so I Googled something like God of Justice, and Marduk came out. I was like, fuck, man, that was bad. All right, that's badass. Yeah, I'm Marduk. And, and over the years, then I found, oh, hey, there's all this fiction behind it. So it was interesting to sort of see that connection, how these names sort of appear and reappear and recur. That's all I have for now. Please smash the like button. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back soon. Thank you and take care.